So I do have to start off this intro apologizing for me being such a moron. I did in fact forget, would you believe that? Not forget, but I didn't actually click a bloody button here when I was recording this episode, and it is audio only. So apologies for that. I'm still raw as a baboon's arse when it comes to podcasting and whatnot, which I have to say is a testament really to the people that are doing it and making it look and sound good, because if that is the end product, then you are fantastic and you are doing an amazing job. And thanks for shining the light on how newbie I am when it comes to everything. But, work in progress. Anyway, moving on. So today's episode is a very special episode for me because it talks about a topic that, can sometimes be taboo, and it talks about fears. It talks about fear of the unknown. It talks about coping. It talks about emotions and feelings and support. And when I say that, it all is in particular related to having a child with disabilities. So I just want to kind of preface that before I introduce the guest to you, who, by the way, is a man by the name of Evan Rosenblum. And he is a California native, born and bred from Calabasas. Now, I know Calabasas, everybody, majority of people know it from Kardashians, unfortunately putting, or maybe fortunately, stimulating the Calabasas hills out there. Good on you, Kardashians. But he's a Calabasas boy. And I met him through working with TMZ, through which he was there a lot longer than I was and held a much higher position than I did, but is an unbelievable worker, an unbelievable leader, has achieved so much from a career standpoint, and was instrumental, I would say, in a lot of things that happened in TMZ, both good and bad, and has broken some big stories, is an Emmy nominated producer, and now has moved on to greener pastures, where he has quite a successful show with five-time defending champ Tyron Woodley, right quick, and he does have a whole host of projects as well. A couple of pokers in the fire with Adam Pac-Man Jones, who you know from the NFL. I know him from Steelers because I'm a Ravens fan, and one of my best buddies, shout out to Dolphy, Randy Richel, is a hardcore Steelers fan. So I'm bred to hate him naturally, but I don't get into those kind of dynamics. Anyway, like I said, this is the first time that Evan has ever spoke about or opened up about his life, and not only coping with a child that has severe cerebral palsy and some other complications, but it's not only him talking about kind of coping about what life has dealt him and his family, but thriving in the situation that they're living, their truth, and always striving in everything that they're doing. And whether that's trying to create, a community or a place, or helping other people who are going through similar things, it's a really amazing story, and one that naturally, as a parent, you're shaped by that. And also as a man and a human being, you're shaped by that. And things like that definitely change your life and put a lot of things into perspective. And I really do want to take an extra time right now to say thank you to Evan for trusting me to speak about this topic. And I just really hope that I got the tone of this right, because I do love and respect him, and I love and respect his wonderful daughter as well, Sydney. And I really hope that there's a lot of resources here for people, and it's just a sounding board for anybody that may be facing into the news of having a child that has a disability or whatnot, or is currently dealing with a situation. I hope that it just gives a bit of solace and is a bit of good listening and some help. So here it is. I hope you enjoy. All right, it is a very, very special treat today. I have a good friend of mine who I actually haven't seen in a decade, would you believe it or not? Hard to believe that a man can get more attractive the less you see him. But here he is, I would say, super dad, super producer, showrunner, all round amazing individual, Mr. Evan Rosenblum. You were very welcome. Thank you for taking the time today, my man.
Man, it's an honor and pleasure to be on your show, Peter. I appreciate it. We go way back, and I always appreciated your curiosity, your genuineness, and I'm proud of what you're doing here, man. It's an honor to be on the show.
Thank you very much. So, just to give people a little bit of context, myself and Evan worked in TMZ. I was there for the best part of 5 years. Evan is what we would call an OOG. He is one of, I would say, the founders and has been instrumental in a lot of incredible things that have happened in the tenure of TMZ with telepictures and whatnot. And now you're onto obviously greener pastures, which we'll kind of get into as well. Life after TMZ. So I just wanted to kind of get into your life. Obviously, you're born and raised in California, right?
Yes, sir. Valley till I die, 818, man. Been from the Valley. Grew up around here. My dad was worked for Warner Brothers. He was in the entertainment industry.
Do we give a shout out to Bruce? Shout out to
There is.
Bruce.
So everybody thinks that there's two Bruce Rosenblums, one who like ran the studio and one who ran the research department. Everybody thinks my dad was the bigger one. So I was like,
That can
shit.
have its benefits, though, right? You know,
That's right. I
when you're
never,
kind of going out, you can pick which Bruce
that's right.
you get to play.
His dad runs Warner Brothers, and I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll go with that.
Your dad, obviously Bruce, and I know of the man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah,
Um, I know he's been a huge influence, obviously, on you in your life, but
absolutely.
how much of an influence has he been on you as a human, I guess, and as a dad?
Yeah, I'm very lucky that I have a very supportive father. I'm one of four kids. I'm the oldest, and my father had an important job growing up, but he always made time for us. He was always around. He was at every baseball game. He was at every performance at school. He was always around. He was always there. He was always over my shoulder helping me with stuff.
Amazing.
He was a very supportive and still is a very supportive, loving father, and I'm very lucky to have him in my life. My parents are great. I count my blessings because you see as you get older and you realize like the different kinds of parents that are out there, and
Yeah.
the fact that I have two great, caring, loving parents who are good people and continue to be great grandparents. I'm very lucky.
Was there a particular style of parenting that you kind of grew up with your folks? Did you have a
I
lot
would
of kind of free
say
reign, or were they like a lot stricter?
so. I was the oldest, and I definitely was treated with more like a strict upbringing than my brothers and sister, and
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
acknowledges that in my family. Like when you're the oldest and your parents try to figure it out, and I've learned along the way too. It's like,
Yeah,
we have to get this right. We have to do the right thing. We have to make sure we don't screw this kid up. And so I got a lot of
pressure.
that from my parents, but ultimately was very supportive, and there was an emphasis on school. There was an emphasis on sports. My parents believed that I should be a well-rounded person, right? That I
Yeah.
shouldn't. There were people who put their kid in sports and were convinced that their kid was going to play professionally. And some did
Oh
actually,
yeah. Oh
but
yeah. I'm guilty of it myself, Evan, from time
yeah,
to time. I have a white, red-headed child who has serious pathetic fallacy of thinking he's getting into the NBA.
yeah.
So I have to kind of rain on his parade, very gently, or drizzle on his parade with the expectations.
Yeah, well, I always feel, I always felt, and I feel now, I have a son. I have an 8-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son, and I feel with
Yep.
my kids, I don't have any delusions that they're going to play professionally in any kind of a sport. If they find a passion and they want to dedicate themselves to it, that's something that they'll figure out down the way. But right
Yep.
now, I feel like my duty on the sports front is to give them the tools to make their own decisions and feel like they can fit in. Because as we know, especially for boys, like playing sports and being able to pick up a ball and go play pickup or throw a baseball, something like that. It's a big part of like bonding.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so for my kids, all I want to do is make sure that he knows how to throw a baseball and knows how to like go out there and can hang with the rest of the kids. And
Yeah.
again,
Absolutely.
if he decides that he finds a sport and wants to pursue it, good on him. He can do that, and I'll support him.
Yeah.
But that's not where my head's at for him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's really funny actually. I'm like hammering home to my children. When I was growing up, it was in Ireland, it's all about go to college, get a piece of paper. It doesn't matter what it is, just get your piece of paper so you have
Yeah,
something to fall back on, that kind of thing. After everything I've done in life, I've had a couple of different careers and whatnot. My grandmother, who's 87, love her, is still convinced I need to move home and work for the county or get a job in the bank. There's fierce security in that, you know, you'll get a pension and you'll do all
Yep.
that kind of great stuff. So it's just really important to touch on what we're saying with just expectations, you know, and like the pressure of things these days. I feel like for children, you know, we're in this visual kind of digital era where everything is immediate. So we're seeing the end product of things without actually seeing the kind of journey and the work and the things that it takes to get to that end point, you know?
Right.
So I've been just hammering on with my kids, trade, do a trade, do a trade,
Yeah.
become an electrician, become a mason, become a plumber. You'll be
Yeah.
loaded. You'll never have a shortage of money, of jobs. But you know, it's not as glamorous as you know, playing in the NBA. So it's a hard enough sell, man.
Yeah, no, it's true. But I have a brother who played college football, and when he was in college, like that was his main focus was playing football. And at the time, my brothers and my sister talk all the time. We're like, well, what's he going to do when football's over? And
Yeah.
for him, what he ended up doing, because he didn't play professionally, he was pretty good, but he didn't play professionally. But then he decided that he wanted to make football a part of his life and went into coaching, got a teaching credential. So he went
Okay.
to college and he had that college experience, and the experience of playing Division One football actually helped him land coaching jobs. So he went and I was a coach at junior college, then he was at high schools, and now he's got a very successful coaching and teaching career. And he gets
Yeah.
to do the thing that he loves, which is football, and that's a huge part of his life. And he's teaching other kids and playing sports and taking sports seriously. The end goal shouldn't always be, playing in the NFL or playing on the
Yeah.
professional. You can still be a part of a sport that you love without playing at the highest level. And that's why it's important to also, not just focus on sport, but learning the business around it and all the other industry that goes along with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a fantastic point. You may have an end goal in sight, but you know, the road may change on the way to that end point, and you may end up being in an even better position that you
That's
even
right.
thought you could possibly be in,
That's right.
says the guy
And
sitting on a mountain here in Maui.
that's right.
But I did want to touch a little bit about career with you because obviously your dad was in entertainment. You have gone down the yellow brick road as well, following him. But what I will say is, nothing was certainly handed to you on a plate. I do know you personally. I know how hard you work. I know the hours that have gone into what you're doing and to where you are right now. So I think it's really important for you to touch on, you know, the secrets to success, which in reality are hard work and determination. So just for people to know, you did start at the bottom with telepictures and you did work your way all the way up to the pinnacle. So I'd love for you to kind of touch on that.
Yeah, I mean, my journey through TMZ was that way, right? I started as an intern, but I saw Harvey Levin was starting a show called Celebrity Justice. I worked really hard to impress him when I was an intern. He ended up hiring me out of college as a production assistant. I became friends with the head writer on the show that we worked on at the time. Busted my ass for him in addition to getting coffee and writing tapes and doing all the stuff
Yep.
that you do in your low man. And they liked me and they took me under the ring and they gave me opportunities to write for the show. And one thing led to another. And before you know it, I was given more responsibility and more responsibility. And then as Team Z came along, same thing. It was like there was a moment where I really, hunkered down and said, I want to be successful in this. And I
Yeah.
dedicated my life to doing that. And I was in the office at one point at Team Z when we were beginning, me and this guy named Brian Particelli, who's still there. We were in the office at 4 o'clock in the morning, trying to we knew that there were other news outlets that were trying to get content up before us. So we get in earlier, work harder and try to, get our site and everything ready, beat them
Yep.
to the punch. It was a competition for us. And we took that challenge seriously and worked really hard and things started to grow and grow and grow. And, we, as a team, when we were a very small group at TMZ, we kind of had this like a sports mentality where we were a team and we were in
Yeah.
it together. We decided that we wanted to win and we were a bunch of young people with Harvey, who wasn't
Yeah.
so young. But as a group, we decided that we wanted success and then we were willing to do anything to get it. And so we were, all in early, working late, no, nights, weekends, no time off, no days off. If something happened in the middle of the night, something happened, we were on vacation, if something happened, you dropped everything and you made
Yeah.
sure that you focus on the job at hand, the task at hand, and you got it done. And we did that consistently. I worked for Harvey ultimately for 20 years, TMZ
Yeah.
17 of those years. And it was, 100 miles an hour from the minute you walked in the office until the minute you left. And then, like I said, calls, it
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
stop. Right? So
And then
weekends.
after hours. And I mean, that's what it takes. If
Yeah,
you're trying to be number one and you're trying to be a leader in this industry, you know, you grind for it, like, because there are so many other outlets that are trying to beat you to the punch with accessing
exactly.
information and whatnot. So that is the level of dedication. It never stops. Like, even when you're off, you're always on. It's kind of what I'm trying to get at. And again, that is the price to be the best, you know?
Yeah.
So, who has been like the biggest influence for you in your life
In my life, like, overall in my life, like, I would
overall?
my parents, were huge influences for me. And, like,
Yeah,
my dad, grew up poor, he was the first one in the family to get a college education, and that was, extremely important to him.
yeah,
He busted his ass for that. For him, the path was baseball. He was really good at baseball. That
yeah,
presented him opportunities, and he took advantage of that, and got an education. And then once baseball was over, he really dedicated himself and made a career for himself, and it was all very grateful for him. But his work ethic and his commitment to success and his commitment to his family and all that stuff like had a tremendous influence on me. It still does.
yeah, absolutely. And I think those are the things that are so important. Like, I think work ethic is really something that it gets overlooked so often, and it's such a simple thing that when executed, you will absolutely get success. You know, I don't understand why it gets overlooked, you know?
Yeah.
For me as an immigrant and as an Irish person, it was just quintessential. Like, moving to America, my goal going there was, I'm gonna outwork people. Like, I'm gonna look at this American person and I'm gonna do double or triple what this person is doing and have no qualms about it. And maybe that's
Right.
just because where I'm coming from. And, you know, I really was sold on the American dream. Like I was saying, you know, we grew up on kind of Western culture and we're watching all this and we're enamored by it. So for me, it was, I'm going to go to America and I'm going to grab this cherry, you know, and take a big old bite out of it. Like, and there's nobody going to stop me. And I think the work ethic and the determination of getting what I wanted, I mean, it's such a symbiotic thing, I feel like.
Yeah.
You know, you can't have one without the other. So I'm really glad you touched on that.
Yeah, I mean, there is a moment where, you have to make a choice, because you know that, other people out there, whatever it is you're trying to achieve, that there's somebody who wants just as bad, if not more than you, and you have a choice. You can try to outwork them, and not everybody's built for that, right? And that's something that I learned along the way too. Is
Yeah,
I had it when I was first starting out, and for the first several years I was a professional. Like, I was going at 100 miles an hour,
yeah,
and I thought everybody wanted to go at 100 miles an hour.
yeah,
And I realized that not everybody's built that way, and not everybody wants that, and that's totally fine. And it took me time and years and maturity and life experiences to figure that out and learn that, like, everybody goes a different pace, and that's totally fine, and there's a place for everyone. But for me, like, I knew what I wanted, and I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to, and I wanted to be the kind of leader that people looked at and said, he's not just delegating stuff out, like, he's down to do the
yeah,
work. And I wanted to earn respect by putting in the work and showing people. I would never ask people to do stuff that I wasn't willing to do myself, right?
yeah,
So it's like, I'm gonna ask people to, like, put in the extra work and extra hours, stuff like that. Like, how can I do that? How can I ask that of somebody if I'm not willing to do that myself? And so that was always my mentality, just go, go, go. That was the way I thought and felt for a very long time, and it
yeah.
really took the birth of my daughter to kind of wake me up and realize, like, whoa,
What am I
change your
doing?
level. And I know it's so cliche to be like, oh, you have a kid and it changed your life, but it sure did.
No, and to touch on that point, very beautifully said, actually, and I couldn't agree with you more. 2014 was the birth of my first son, Olivier. 2014 was also coincidentally the year that I left TMZ. For me personally, I haven't really talked about it or gone into it, but at the end of my tenure in TMZ, I was a very, very unhappy person. I was a shade of myself. I wasn't comfortable with where I was at in life, and I certainly didn't have the mental maturity and the mental capacity to be happy for other people's success. And what that did to me, it made me very toxic. It made me very jealous. It made me very cynical of people that I didn't need to be jealous of. There was no competition, but in my mind, you know, I had achieved this level of success. I had achieved this level of fame, this money, and it just kind of capped out for me. And like I say, I didn't have the maturity as a man and as a human being to like really conceivably process that and understand it. It's taken me, you know, after the fact to kind of look back at it and go, oh wow, okay, like this is why you were behaving. But the reason I'm saying that is because when my son was born, like you say, it really just put everything into perspective for me. You know, I had this new role that I was taking on, which you can't be fired from. It's ambiguous. You don't know how to navigate it. It's terrifying. It's exciting. I absolutely agree with you. You know, you are forced at times to change and change your entire wiring and your programming because you have something far greater and you have such purpose with the birth of a child.
I completely agree with everything you just said. And I really haven't talked about my story publicly before, but I'm glad you're giving me the opportunity to talk about my story here because I, first off, I have tremendous respect for everybody that I work with at TMZ.
Absolutely.
I want to say that, and I think that they're good people. But I think that it's impossible for anybody who is in upper management at TMZ to truly understand what I was going through
Yeah.
because I didn't really understand what I was going through at the time. And so when I tell the story, like I want to stress that this isn't intended to be a shot at anybody because it's not. It's just this is just the way it happened.
Yeah.
So my wife was 25 weeks pregnant in 2015, and she felt uncomfortable one day, and we decided, out of abundance of caution, to go to the hospital. So we went to Cedar Sinai, and it's our first kid. And we've been going to the high risk doctors, and only because my wife had had a thing in the past that wasn't that big of a deal, but we figured we'd take all the caution, high risk doctors and stuff. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
on that day, in August of 2015, she felt uncomfortable in the morning, decided to go to the hospital, let's just get it checked out. We went. As soon as she went to the hospital, the doctors, took her blood pressures up. Like, whoa, something is horrifically wrong here. And my day went from like a nice, easy day to like 1,000 miles an hour in the middle
I
of
can't
freaking
even imagine, Evan.
like that. Basically, at one point, the doctors came to my wife and I and said to my wife, "You have severe preeclampsia. Your internal organs are shutting down.
Oh,
Your daughter is in grave danger. Your wife is in grave danger, and we need to do everything we can to save her life and the life of your baby. So this is going to get real intense real quick." And that's
wow.
like, yeah, what? Like, all of a sudden, it went from, like, La La Land to, like, "Oh my god," I was trying to grasp the situation, but
I
adrenaline
mean,
takes over.
how do you even like when you're given that kind of news? I can imagine it's shell shocking.
Your body gets numb. I mean,
Yeah. Oh,
that's
yeah.
what happened. Like, it went numb, and one of the first calls I made was to Charlie Neff at Team Z, actually,
Oh, wow.
because I was supposed to, talk to her that day, about a story, and I called her up, I was like, "Charlie, I'm off the grid the rest of the day. I don't know what's gonna happen." And by the way, Charlie Neff is one of the nicest people,
Yes. Shout
and
out to Charlie Naff.
so I called her that day, and I said, "I gotta be off the grid the rest of the day," and she was like, you gotta do one thing. They moved my wife into a different part of the hospital. I think it was in intensive care, and they were doing all these tests on her. And at one point, one of the doctors came to me and said, "If you have a parent who's available or somebody who can be here, like you should probably call. Like, this is getting very serious."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my god, how do you process this?" They ended up saying that they were able to like they bought us 2 days essentially. They're like, "We're
Okay.
in 2 days, we're going to do, an emergency C-section, and we're gonna, try to deliver the baby and save your wife. She looks like she's sort of stable, but it's still touch and go."
And at this
Um,
point, Evan, your lady is
25 weeks.
25 weeks. Okay.
25 weeks, and the
So
average gestation is 40 weeks
so
for
you
a
have some time to go.
Yeah, right. So, I'm just, like, completely freaking out, and so, the next day, all these doctors are coming in and trying to tell us, like, the chances of survival for my daughter, the chances of survival for my wife. At one
Jesus.
point, a doctor pulled me aside and said, "There is a very real chance that your wife and your daughter are going to pass away. I just wanna make sure that you have a support system in case something happens." That's a real conversation that happened in the halls.
And what is conceivably, Evan, like what is going through your mind at this point, man? You have like
all I kept thinking about was you trying to hold on to any kind of hope. So I was asked a million questions and hoping that with every question that I asked, that I would get a little bit more hope to grasp onto, to hold on to. Because
Yeah.
Sam and I, and Sam for the most part is incapacitated, and I'm just alone,
Yeah.
just trying to process all this and deal with this. It's either side.
And I imagine there's probably a portion of you that is probably refusing to accept it and even understand it, that this is even a reality, that this is even happening. There's probably a portion of you that is this real? Am I in a dream? Is
Probably
this
so.
even happening?
Probably subconsciously, Peter, but to be honest with you, like, in the moment, I just remember, like, trying to be, like, tunnel vision, laser focused on, like, "Okay, what's the next thing in front of me?" That's what I
Yeah.
was focusing on, like, "What's the next thing?" They told me that they were gonna give, my wife and daughter, like, a shot to try and, like, help the lungs. I can't remember what it was, but to try and help, like, give her a better shot at being able to breathe, and then there was a moment where the doctors came in, the neonatologists came in, the NICU doctors, and they sat down with my wife and I the day before delivery, and they said, "So we don't know if your daughter's going to make it. And what's going to happen is we're going to have a NICU team in the delivery room.
Yeah.
And when we perform the C-section, what we're looking for is something called vigorous signs of life."
Okay.
And I said, "Well, what's vigorous signs of life?" And they said, "Well, you'll know it when you see it." And I said, "I don't, you got to help me out. What does that mean?" They're like, "Well, if she cries, if she moves." And then they said, if she doesn't do any of that stuff, then we're going to go into comfort care mode, and essentially we're going to help her transition as peacefully as we possibly
Yeah.
can. And I said, "Okay, well, what about my wife?" And they said, "Okay, well, she's mostly stable, but obviously, we gotta, she's the priority. We want to make sure that she's healthy and gets
Yeah.
through this, and then we'll figure this out. But we're going to have the NICU team waiting in the delivery room." So first thing in the morning on the day of the delivery, we went into the delivery room. I'm freaking out. I don't know how. I think I slept 5 minutes the night before. I don't even know how I did that. And then they performed the procedure. They went in. They grabbed my daughter, who was 1.9 pounds, and I heard Sydney make a noise, and I saw the arm go up, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, "Vigorous signs of life! Vigorous signs of life!
Yeah.
Vigorous signs of life!" And they go, "Vigorous signs of life!" And they passed her over to the NICU team, and they immediately start to get to work on her. And she was the smallest little thing I've ever seen in my entire life. My
Yeah.
wife was, medicated, but wasn't aware of what's going on. And she was
Okay.
happy. She was like, "Go, go." And I'm like, "Okay." So I went and followed my daughter. They put her in a little, as soon as they got her stabilized, they put her in the incubator, and then they
Yeah.
rushed her to the fourth floor where the NICU was. And then my wife ended up stabilizing. She was in intensive care for, I believe, almost 2 weeks.
Oh wow,
And
thank
my
God.
my daughter was in the NICU for 143 days.
Wow. Unbelievable.
So in the NICU, I'll try to make this story short. I don't want to babble too
Yeah,
long,
no,
but
no, no. Well,
once
actually, I was born, believe it or not, 7 weeks early.
oh, no
So
kidding.
I was about 4.9 pounds when I was born.
Wow.
So I have a little bit of understanding about it. I spent a little bit of time in the
Yeah.
NICU myself.
Yeah. A NICU grad, huh?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
see,
alumni,
look at you
alumni of the
now, man.
NICU. Look at
Thriving,
me now,
thriving.
fat
Yeah.
and happy.
There you go. So the long story short with Sydney was that day they were able to stabilize her, but she was far from out of the woods. She ended up undergoing 4 major surgeries during the time in the NICU, including heart surgery, a lung surgery. She ended up getting an infection called necrotizing enterocolitis, which is unfortunately a very destructive condition to get,
Yeah.
and it's very fatal in most conditions. What happened that day was I had gone back to work, and I should
Okay.
not have gone back to work.
Yeah.
Or I look at it now, I was not ready to be back to work. Should not have been back to work. When I look back at it, I wish somebody, whether it was somebody in my personal life or professional life, would have just grabbed me and said, "No."
Yeah.
Because the day that I was at work and that Sydney got that infection, again, which kills most kids within hours here in the NICU, I got the call like, "Hey, we believe she has this condition. You need to get here right now." I immediately spent in my car and I
Yeah.
drove 1,000 miles an hour to get to the hospital. And the whole time I was just like, when she passes away before I get there, like, I'll never forget myself. Like,
Oh,
you know, how
absolutely.
did I
Yeah.
prioritize? How did I prioritize? Ultimately, it was my decision to go back to work, but like, how did I prioritize this over like being here? Like, what was I doing? What was I thinking? I ended up getting back to the hospital. They cleared out the NICU. They performed emergency surgery on her right then and there. Again, she was like barely 2 pounds when this is
Yeah.
happening. 6 weeks old, which makes her only 31 gestational weeks. And you're not even supposed to be born until 40.
Yeah.
So she's having a major surgery where they removed a third of her intestine at 6 weeks of life. Again, it was a situation where the surgeon came in and said she may make it, she may not. We don't know. We're hoping that she does, but it's a lot
Yeah.
for it's a lot of stress on a person who's not even supposed to be born yet.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what happened was the surgery was a success, but she experienced a traumatic brain injury during the surgery because it was too much stress for her tiny little body, and she ended up
Yeah.
being diagnosed later on with something called bilateral PVL, which is brain damage.
Okay.
Again, after 143 days in NICU, after the lung surgery, the stomach surgery, the heart surgery, and other stuff, she ended up coming home on Christmas Day for
Oh, no
100.
way.
Yeah,
I mean,
diagnosed.
is there a better gift, really?
I mean, for a Jew, I was like, now Christmas is the most special day of the year for me, right? We celebrate every year now. No, that's a
Silver
really
linings, huh?
in my family. We celebrate, we are grateful, we honor that day.
Well, I
Um,
was going to say, if the Catholics are always accepting new members, it
man,
comes with a free side of Catholic guilt.
I always love to wait for it. Look tasty. But anyway, so she was ended up diagnosed with bilateral PVL, which is essentially brain damage, and severe cerebral palsy, like the most severe kind of cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
And so she is nonverbal, but she's expressive. So she
Yeah.
can't form words, but she can make sounds and noises, and she will let you know if she's happy. She'll let you know if she's sad. She's smart. She just doesn't have the ability to speak, and also she's non-ambulatory, which means she can't walk.
Okay.
So she's wheelchair bound, but she goes to physical therapy. She has all the different therapists: horse
Yeah.
therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy to try to help her. Everything you can do, we do for her.
Yeah.
And she has responded in the most unbelievable way. Like, she is the most incredible kid. She's the hardest worker. She's such a fighter.
Yeah.
And she's learned how to communicate, like I said, through expressions and stuff like that. But also, there was an amazing woman. Her name is Allie Steers, and she is a specialist in nonverbal communication for kids with conditions like Sydney,
Incredible.
physical. And she was able to introduce Sydney to a form of communication called POD. And
Okay.
it starts with a book, and it's kind of like choose your own adventure. And Sydney learns the pathways, and she'll say C for yes and shake her head for no.
Okay.
And she's able to deliver messages by going through the book. And now she's learning the computer, and she can use her left hand. Her right hand is fisted. It doesn't really work, but her left
Yeah.
hand works. She's able to navigate her computer and create and tell us messages with her computer, thanks to this unbelievable woman named Alex here. So
Well, that's incredible, Evan, isn't it,
it's
really?
amazing. It's amazing. And by the way, the coolest part about this computer is we've loaded it with like a million YouTube videos because Sydney loves music. She's a big
Yep.
fan of like Taylor Swift. She loves Dolly Parton. She loves popular music. And so we've loaded this computer up, and at school during recess and lunch, she plays music for all the kids, and she's become like the most popular kid at
Oh
school
my
because she's like
God.
DJ. And
That
so
is
all the kids
unbelievable, man.
are incredible. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's great that she inherited your musical tastes as well. Must be
You
Ev,
know,
the
her
Swifty.
mom is a big Spice Girls fan, and she likes
Whoa,
the
whoa,
Spice.
whoa. No, nobody will speak ill of a Zigga Zigga.
No,
How dare you
she's
before
got it
you
on the
go any
computer
further.
right now. She loves it. Big fan.
That is absolutely incredible, and every father thinks their children, of course, are the greatest thing since sliced pans. But I will validate this. And the most amazing thing about social media, it has a lot of negatives, but there are a lot of positives with Instagram and things like this. And it's the ability to peer into other people's lives and kind of really feel like you're a part of it or know what's going on. And that's something for me that I have had with Sydney and with you, albeit we haven't talked in a long time, but I get to kind of vicariously live through Instagram, and I get to follow your story, and I get to see your beautiful daughter. I get to see she's bright as a button and an unbelievable individual. And I really get to see that joy that you're experiencing with her. It's such a beautiful thing.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And my wife and I made a decision very early on about social media with my daughter because there are a lot of people who believe like don't put your kids on social media, and that's fine. And that's totally great for some people. It works for some people, but for us, What we were looking for was a community, because when you have a kid with special needs and all this, you don't know how to navigate this world.
Yeah.
Nobody can prepare for it. It's not like you when you're getting ready to have your first kid, you're like, okay, you're reading parenting books for special needs. You're reading just
Yeah.
parenting books,
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to parent, what to do, and then all of a sudden you have a very radically different situation than most people, and you're like, okay, there's a million different things, right? You got to find the right doctors, you got to find the right therapist. You have to, it's very, very expensive to raise a kid with special needs. And so you got to figure out where to get funding. You got to figure out how we're going to pay for this for the rest of our lives. Like my daughter is amazing and she's doing a lot of things and she's capable of stuff, but she's going to be with us for the rest of her life and our lives.
Yeah.
And that's something that you don't really budget for when you're talking about having kids, right? You put a college fund and you think they're going to go to school and then that's it. Good
Yeah.
luck. Have at it.
Yeah. No.
I love her so much. She's like my
Yeah.
like, I love my family. I have this great family. My daughter and I have this bond. She's amazing. I love her so much. But like the reality of there is a lot that goes
Yeah.
on there, and you need this. You cannot do it alone. And trying to find a community is challenging. And so we would go to meetings for the hospital, stuff like that, trying to know the parents, and it was hard. And then people would kind of connect us on social media. And so we decided, you know what, we're gonna start a page for Sydney. We met other families. They had gone through what we've gone through, and we reached out to them for help and guidance to help navigate us through this impossible new world. And not only has it been incredibly helpful, but like we've made amazing friends through this community, friends that we'll have for the rest of our lives. They're helping us navigate school. They're helping us navigate what happens after school,
Yeah.
with the people that will help us care for Sydney at home.
Yeah.
Um, and then what we're doing is we feel it's our duty to kind of pay that forward to the next group of people who are behind us who are also lost and need help. And so that's why I made the decision to post on social media, um, to do things like the Sydney Run Club, which
Which is amazing. Amazing, by the way. Yes. You've always been an avid runner. I mean,
yeah,
and into fitness, like, and it's fantastic that, you can have a myriad of that passion with your daughter, and it's something that you both can really, really enjoy, which obviously can be seen as well on Sid's page and on the running page as well. Like it's beautiful, Ev. I mean,
thank you, Peter.
it's a beautiful thing, man, to watch something that potentially is world ending, and if you were per se or Sam was a different person, this could have a starkly different outcome.
Absolutely. And look, situations like this, we've seen it. And there are statistics and there's a lot of research to back this up, but it breaks up a lot of marriages. I mean, there's no way to kind of pussyfoot around this,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like it's a very stressful situation, and relationships fall apart because of these situations. And you have a choice to make. You can let the situation divide you, or you can use the situation to kind of say like, we're in this together
To
and build
unite and
closer.
bond even closer. Yeah.
And for my wife and I, it's been that. It's brought us closer. We are more united every day on this. I'm not a very religious person, but I do kind of believe in fate, stuff like that. And I feel like for some reason, like this was our fate, and
Yeah.
we're bonded to this, and it's brought Sam and I closer together. And Sydney is, it's given us a new sense of purpose to try to, not only help her live the best life possible, but help other families. And at the Sydney Run Club, we saw that I've always wanted to, when you're a parent, you want to share experiences that you like with your kid.
Yeah.
And when you have a kid with special needs like Sydney, you go, how are we going to be able to do this? But I would, we take her on walks and runs, and I saw that she liked it. And we'd get a little speaker, we put it on the bottom, and we play music that she liked, and she would wave at other people when we were running. And I was like, oh, maybe we should invite other people. And my brother Bradley was like, hey, I'm going to come running with you guys. Let's go running at the park. And we
Yeah.
were more people. And it was kind of like Forrest Gump. Well, like, we were just running, and all of a sudden people were like, hey, can we come running with you? And we're like, yeah, come on. And now all of a sudden we had a big group of people, and we're like, okay, well, let's run the Great Race of Agora, which was a big 10K that Sam and I had done a bunch of times in the past. And we decided, let's just make that our challenge for now. We had a big group of people that did it together. It was an amazing experience, and he had the time of our life. And now we're like, well, let's keep it going. And so now our next goal is a half marathon. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
do a marathon one day. Shout
Yeah.
out to Rick and Nick Hoy, by the way, who were my inspiration for that. Rick and Nick
Okay.
Hoy, the father son. The son had cerebral palsy, and the father were taking on runs. And this was like right around the time where the speaking devices were kind of coming of age.
Okay.
And he got the son a speaking device, and the first thing he said was like, I want to go on a run. I love running with you, Dad. And that was it. The father was like, we're doing every race we can possibly do. And they became legends. They're Boston legends. They won the marathon a million times. They both passed away recently, unfortunately, but they've been such an inspiration to me and other families, and I'm like, every time I get out there with city, I think of them, and I
Yeah.
hope to inspire other people to join us or do something fun with their kids, stuff
Oh,
like that.
absolutely. Your interpretation, Ev, of limitations, I imagine, has changed drastically
100%.
since this experience. I'm sure you believe that anything is humanly possible after everything that you've gone through.
Absolutely, and, you see kids that are more, they call it involved. When you're more severely disabled, the word that we use in the community is more involved. And there are kids that are more involved in Sydney that do amazing things every day. As a family, we are deep in that community, and we
Yeah,
we are with families with similar situations every day, literally every single day. And watching some of these other kids and families, like what they're told like they'll never be able to do this, this, and this, and then they surpass those limits by miles, and it's amazing to watch. And a huge part of it is people like Allie Steers. I want to give her all the credit in the world because Sam and I were kind of down on like what are we going to do. Somebody like Allie
yeah,
comes up and goes, "Are you kidding me? Like she's going to thrive. Here's what we need to do, and help us put a plan in place."
yeah.
So the right schools, the right therapists, and now Sydney's thriving and other kids in the community meet people like that that have a person that sees the potential and goes to the family and goes, look, I know you feel a certain way, but your child can achieve so much more. Here's how we get there.
I imagine in a time of darkness, you're just looking for any piece of light, and I'm sure Ali was your piece of light that came and
Absolutely.
shone and just bloomed everything that the light shone on. So that is such
Absolutely.
an amazing thing to hear, and I think it definitely gives hope and solace to other people that are potentially in the situation. And, I wanted to ask you for parents that are currently in the situation, they haven't had their child yet, but they are obviously aware that there is a disability, what kind of things could you impart or could you offer for people that are kind of at that stage?
So number one, and I went through this. You start thinking about worst case scenario. You're like, oh my God, is my daughter ever going to walk? Oh my God, she's never going to talk. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this is the end of life as we know it. Then you have all these people that come in. They say, hey, everything happens for a reason, and those people piss you off. Do not tell that to somebody going through trauma,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Do not tell that to somebody because it's the last thing you want to hear. What you just
yeah.
want to hear is like, any way I can support you, come in. Anything, whatever I can do, count me in. And most of the time, people in the situation don't know what they want. They don't know what they need.
Yeah,
But what we needed, and that's what we're like so clear on now is we needed guidance and help from people that have been through it
yeah,
that understand how to navigate things like CCS and with child services and all the different resources
yeah.
available to you and how to get this person the help that they need, how to get families the help you need. That's what you need. By the way, if you see somebody on social media and you don't know what's going on, reach out to them because most of the time they're going to
Okay.
write back to help you out. And
Yeah,
you can start with me.
yeah.
My family, we can help at the very least connect you with people that might be able to help you. So if you're watching this and you're going through a situation that I went through, feel free to reach out to me. I'm on social media. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
gonna put up your links obviously to everything to Sydney and whatnot. So like I know it is
awesome.
such a fantastic resource. And you are a
Absolutely.
fantastic resource for not only dads out there, but parents in general that are kind of facing into what you've been through. I think you're a tremendous asset for people with understanding and clarity
Yeah.
and kind of vision with what you've been through. I did want to touch, obviously you have another handsome little boy as well. How was it for you conceivably making a decision to have another child after you have been through what you've been through?
Yeah. So we thought about it. Obviously, we put a lot of thought into whether or not we wanted to have a second child. Because in theory, when we were, young and before kids, we're like, we want to have kids and blah 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 blah. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you're in a situation where you have this, start to realize, this situation you're in with your kid with special needs, and you're like, wow, can we have another kid? And then we looked around and the decision that we came up with, and it's, I don't want to feel like I'm imparting my values and thoughts on other people. For us, what we wanted was we wanted to have another kid because we felt like number one, we wanted to have Sydney to have a sibling.
Yep.
And number two, I love Sydney for who she is.
Yep.
She's my best friend in the world. She's the best thing. But it's a different experience
Oh
than
yeah,
raising.
absolutely.
We wanted an opportunity to have that experience as well.
Yeah.
So we were like, we feel like that would complete our family, and so we made that decision to try for a second child.
Yeah, a difficult decision, nonetheless. I feel like any time you are deciding to have a child, it is a difficult decision because there's so many things that come with it. But with your boy, I can see how close he is with Sydney, and I can see she idolizes him. Like their relationship is so special, and you can see it when you go on her page, and it's fantastic.
It's great. I mean, it's everything we hoped it would be, and we're very lucky that he loves her so much and doesn't see her as any different. He's only
Yeah,
6 foot now, and there will come. He is asking questions.
yeah,
A lot of people do. They'll come up to us and be like, "Hey," like other kids will come and be like, "Why doesn't she talk?"
yeah,
Now Ben is at the point where he says she uses her computer to talk. Like he knows now.
yeah, yeah.
But he understands her. She adores him. They're like
Well, they're
typical.
thick as thieves, the two of them. You can tell. Like,
He gets mad at her because she wants to watch Taylor Swift on TV every time we sit down, and he's like, "We're always watching Taylor Swift. When are we gonna watch something I want to watch?" One of the things we have to keep in mind when you have a kid who demands as much attention as Sydney does, right? Because that's just the nature of
yeah,
having a kid
yeah,
situation. There's second child syndrome anyway, and then it's
totally.
on steroids when you have a kid like Sydney. So it's like we're trying to keep that top of mind that like
Yeah,
we need to give him as much attention, and so we try to really make as much kind of one-on-one time with him, and
yep.
does things like parkour. By the way, if you have a kid, a little boy with too much energy like mine,
Oh,
boom,
that's the one. I
it's
have
the
two of them actually. Yeah.
greatest thing ever. It's like
Okay.
American Warrior for kids. It's
All
insane.
right.
He loves that.
Parkour.
That's great. And then she supports him. She loves doing that. And then same, he goes to her, which he does for horseback therapy. He goes and supports her, cheers her on. When she does, her music class and she plays the drums, he's there cheering her on. Like they have this great, it's really special relationship
Yeah.
that
And I
lasts.
mean, I see her doing ballet, man, and everything, and
Yeah,
it's incredible, dude. It really is, and it just brings such a smile to my face. It's special, is the only real kind of word for it. And I think the work that you're doing is very special. I think how you've conducted yourself is very special. I think you are an incredible individual for people. I think what you're doing is incredible. I think you're an absolute warrior. To have taken on what you're taking on and processing it and dealing with it in the manner that you're doing it. I, for one, am very, very, very proud of the man you are and the human being you are. And I'm very proud to call you a friend of mine.
thank you.
And I'm pretty sure there is a gang of people who feel the same, Ev.
I appreciate you saying that, man. Man, it's heavy, Peter. I appreciate you saying that a
And I
lot.
mean it. I genuinely mean it from my heart, man. I can't obviously ever understand, the situation you're in because I'm not in it, but I have a somewhat understanding of what it takes with my children, and the stresses. So, I really take my hat off to you and take my hat off to Sam, for the incredible things that you're doing, man.
It means a lot, and your support along the way has been, you mean so much, and I appreciate you.
I think what you've imparted, man, will be extremely helpful for people that are seemingly feeling lost and not knowing where to turn. I think you've definitely been that kind of ray of light that we talked about. But I do want to touch, obviously, on career because I know you have some fantastic
Sure.
things going. You were with UFC rapper, handsome man, Tyron Woodley. You've got a fantastic show. So give people some guidance as to where they can kind of find you and tune in.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I know Tyron Woodley, five-time UFC welterweight champion. I became friends at TMZ. We did a show together there, and we just stayed friends throughout the years. And we decided to kind of get the gang back together and do a new show. It's called Real Right Quick. And Tyron came up with the name. I love it. It zings. It's great. And
Yeah,
we basically it's a fusion of like sports and pop culture from two people with different backgrounds, but we have this great relationship where we can really dig down on issues and talk
yeah,
through things like everything through what happened to last UFC fight to what's going on with Drake and Kendrick Lamar and getting his perspective on stuff and getting my
yeah.
perspective on stuff. We talk about life and sports, and he is an amazing person. I mean, Tyron Woodley is a guy who came from Ferguson, from nothing, and
Yeah.
fought his way to become an international superstar, a five-time champion, a rapper, an actor, a stunt guy. He's producing television shows.
He
He's
seems like a
traveled.
very humble, down to earth individual.
One of the best people you want. Everybody talks about like, oh, who do you want to be in a foxhole with? That guy. Tyrone Lee is an amazing person, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with him. I'm grateful for his friendship. He's an amazing person, and I feel the same way. I'm working on the project with a friend of mine named Pac-Man Jones, the NFL player.
Oh, yes.
Pac-Man and I became friends through a different project, and he had a kid who was born early, and we bonded
Okay.
over and he is another one of these athletes that you meet when you're working at TMZ Sports and you see the headlines that are out about people and you don't really get to know them. Pac-Man Jones is one of like the nicest, smartest, most humble, caring people and talented, by the way. I should say
Yeah.
that. He had an amazing football career, but his talent as a producer and on-screen talent, like he's an amazing guy. And Tyron and Pac-Man have been two guys who have been there for me
Yeah.
from the moment that Sydney was born, and with Tyron, and then with Pac-Man, once he learned about my situation, he's been
Yeah.
so. And I just want to give credit to them because it to the point we were making earlier about your support system, your community. It's important to have friends like that who support you, and those
Yeah.
guys do. I'm very appreciative and grateful for that.
A lot of the time, the information we get is censored, or like you say, the headlines are a particular thing, which kind of really, really dilutes the human being aspect of them. It's really important, that you get to convey something like that, and you get to have an experience with them where you genuinely know these people. So when the kind of bullshit comes out, you can literally cut through it and say, hey, hang on a second now. I know these people. I can vouch for them, and I can vouch for their input into my cause and support,
We were talking about fate earlier, and fate takes you different ways and introduces you to different kinds of people, and I'm grateful for the path that my life has gone, and I mean that in every way. I'm grateful for every part of my life, every road that I've gone down, every experience that I've had. Even when you're in the middle of it, you think, oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm not gonna get through this. I'm grateful for all that. Life is good, man. Honestly.
Awesome. I do have one last question before I let you go.
Okay.
In all of your time in TMZ, I have a story, but what is your one story that just sticks out to you?
I mean, the big one for me, God, there are three big stories that stick out to me. The
Yeah.
first one was Michael Richards, the video at the Laugh Factory. That was
Oh
the
my,
that
yes.
was the
And
first big
yeah.
story that I broke. I got it. I went down to an apartment in San Pedro and found the only surviving copy of that video and negotiated it with cash money in my pocket. And was able to secure that. Went back to the office, and we ended up getting it on the website with the help of Chad Weiser, our good friend.
Yeah.
And that was a real game changer, not just for TMZ, but I mean, it was a sea change in the industry. That was a big
Yeah.
moment for us. So that was a huge moment. When we got the Ray Rice video, that was another big
Yeah.
moment for us. And credit to the entire TV sports team on that. And then the final one was just the day that Kobe Bryant passed away.
Yeah.
Uh, we broke that story, and I couldn't believe it. I could
Eerie, I
not.
imagine.
The whole thing. I remember as we were working that story and we were getting more information, it was just like, I can't believe this is really happening. It was
Yeah.
whole. I still can't believe that it really happened.
Yeah.
But those were the three stories and the 3 days of TMZ that I'll never forget.
Yeah, the big one for me that stands out, I think, is another TMC Sports exclusive, and I think it was the Donald Sterling stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
That for me was probably the biggest thing that I've been involved with, just because of the pressure that it put on organizations, and culturally, we essentially stamped out racism within a team. It just had such crazy,
Well, we put a spotlight on it that people had been ignoring for a very
yeah,
long. The worst kept secret in Los Angeles was that Donald Sterling was a racist, but
yeah,
everybody just kind of like brushed it off. And then when we had that tape, it was like, confront it, confront it.
yeah,
Here it
yeah.
is, right? And we forced the league and we forced everybody in Los Angeles to confront this issue that people just kind of been sweeping under the rug for forever. It was a game changer for
Yeah,
us.
that was why my one for me, and that was the point where I was like, wow, like this is what journalism is. Like this is putting the information out. Now the gun is to your head. answer and be accountable. And that
Mm,
for me,
right.
I'll always be really, really proud of that, actually, that story.
Well, it was always fun working with you, Peter. I mean, it was
I don't know, it's fun, the word you used to describe it, but it was never a
well,
dull
no, but I
moment.
always appreciated working with you. I mean, you always, when we interacted, whether when you were out in the field or when you were in the office or when you came to time in the office, like you always had, a smile and you always had a great attitude and you always had great ideas. It was always a pleasure to work. And I'm glad to see you doing so well now. It
Well,
makes
the
me
feeling is more than mutual, my friend. Your family to me, I'd ride to the gates of hell for you.
appreciate that. I feel the same way about you.
Well, listen, I want to thank you immensely, Ev, for your time today. I know you were a very, very busy man, both professionally and personally, and thank you very much.
Always all out there. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
And again, a huge thank you to Evan for taking the time out of his day and just stopping by for a bit of a chat and opening up and being honest and vulnerable. Love you, buddy. Thank you for doing that. All right, I did want to finish this off with just a couple of points that he talked about with a couple of handles for social media, how you can find him and whatnot. He did mention someone who was of great help to him was Ali Steers. So Ali Steers, that was the name of the lady who helped immensely with young Sydney. And then if you do want to go ahead and follow Sydney's adventures on Instagram, her handle is smiling_Sydney_strong. That is his daughter's page. It's a really, really fun page. Must love Taylor Swift, obviously. And who doesn't love Taylor Swift? Come on. It is obviously run by him and his family as well. Now, Evan's on Instagram and he's also on the Twitter or the X or whatever you want to call it. His handle is Ev Rosenblum. And then if you do want to go ahead and check out that show that he's doing with Tyron Woodley, Ferguson's Finest, five-time again defending UFC champion, amongst other things, actor, producer, rapper. You can check out that show. It's called, again, Real Shh Right Quick, and that is on Tyron's YouTube. You can check that out at Tyron Woodley 296. Now, I do have to give a couple of special mentions. I completely forgot in the first episode to shout them out, but a huge thanks to, sorry, I had a little bit of a stunt. Thanks. A huge shout out to a buddy of mine, uber talented, all round music master and producer, Mr. Rory Lynch, aka Lynchy, aka Bantam. And you should definitely check out Roar's page on X. It is at Rory L. Bantam. That's spelled RUAIRI, capital L, capital BANTUM, and super talented artist, like I said, producer, and any kind of music drops and whatnot. I'm sure he'll be putting them out there, and you shouldn't rob your ears of this melodic gorgeousness. And then last but not least, a huge shout out to Mr. Richard Waters. Rich and I were buddies from the TV3 Virgin days. Incredible man when it comes to production and editing, but more importantly, is a stellar storyteller. That rhymed, and I didn't even mean for that to rhyme. A stellar storyteller and fantastic director. Him and his lady Ali are doing some wonderful things in Irish cinema and creating. So yes, go and check him out. And it is Rich M. Waters on Instagram. Go to Mila Mahagut and stay tuned for the next episode. Good luck.